and one of the biggest strengths that ours bring to the table of humanity is movement and forward momentum.
If we didn't get it done, who would?
Hi, welcome back to the podcast. I'm glad that you're here. Today, we are talking to Sam and Claire, who are just getting ready to get married. And we're exploring that they are both primary R's. And so we're exploring what happens or how some of the things that you see in the dynamic when both people share the same primary temperament, which doesn't happen a whole lot in couples. Happens a little bit more with certain types and other types. But why don't you take a second and introduce yourselves?
My name's Claire. I'm engaged to Sam, and I actually didn't know about C.O.R.E until probably like 6 months ago. So I'm kind of new to the whole idea of C.O.R.E, but it's been really helpful, at least in my life and in our relationship, knowing about it. So.
And then obviously I'm Sam. I am engaged to Claire. I've known C.O.R.E for a while because just knowing more about it, but I haven't like gotten deep into it till obviously I started working here.
Yeah.
But now I'm fully in depth with it, so it's part of my life.
Yeah. So how do you feel like C.O.R.E in general has influenced your courtship?
Obviously, we got engaged really fast, and I think
What's fast?
How long was it? 3 months of us dating?
2 months.
2 months.
But you had known each other a little longer than that.
Yeah, we had known each other for like at that point over 2 years. So, I think part of like our temperament is that we want to move quickly, and so that was a big part of us getting engaged really fast, is because we already knew that we wanted to get married. So we were like, why wait? Let's just get it done, you know?
What would you add to that?
Well, I mean, it's just like the big thing is just assessing whether you want to continue a relationship. And it's like, well, if I assess, I'm like, hey, I've got what I need. Let's move on. Like, what are we waiting for?
Well, which really underscores, so the primary process for the R brain and resolution, it's really important to understand that what the R brain is trying to resolve is when something gets on the screen or the radar of the R, it creates kind of emotional distress, kind of an angst. And that angst is what the R brain is trying to resolve. And it's by getting the thing done that then the lack of resolution is resolved. So it's resolving the fact that whatever the thing is that is on the radar isn't resolved that helps the R feel better. And so one of the biggest strengths that ours bring to the table of humanity is movement and forward momentum.
If we didn't get it done, who would?
But it's interesting that you say that, because
O's.
originally Sam didn't want us to start dating as quickly as we did.
This is not a fun story. It's not.
That's right. Don't cut her off.
But originally he wanted us to like wait 6 months before we started dating, or longer, because he was like, I'm not ready for us to be in a serious relationship.
Well, and that's a perfect example of his R-ness, right? Why? Is that where you were going?
Not really, but
Okay.
That's great. I think it was interesting because I was very ready. I was like, okay, I'm ready to start dating, because I already knew that he was potentially the person I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. So I didn't want to wait and just like waste time, basically.
Yeah. Well, and so that really is a good example because for you it was already on your radar.
Yeah.
And so your brain's like, vámonos, let's go, let's get this resolved. And it sounds like you were trying to keep it off of your radar, because once it got on your radar, you knew that you'd be doing something about it. And so by saying, hey, well, let's wait a little bit to date, then your brain was probably subconsciously trying to keep it from being front and center, because then if you weren't ready to get married or move forward or either filter her out or get married, then by putting it off, you were trying to subconsciously manage how your brain works. It's a good example of that. What are some of the pros that you see in both of you being the same R temperament?
Well, one of my favorite things is that, I mean, a lot of the times as an R, it's hard for people to like catch up with you and like to be going the same speed. And so you're like, come on, let's go. Everyone stop slowing us down. But with an R, it's just like we're on the same page. So we're just like, hey, let's go. And of course, she's like, okay, of course, that's what we're supposed to do. Let's go. But I mean, especially, I mean, it hits that point, but I think it hits a bigger point of also that because we both are initially wired the same way, that when it comes to a lot of, motivating factors and decisions, we're usually on the same page for the big things, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's nice not to be stressed about other people not keeping up with the speed of life that I like. But Sam is the same way, where he just wants to be getting things done quickly and move on to the next thing, which has been really, really helpful. I think the other thing that's really nice is I tend to be really blunt, and Sam's the same way. And we just tell each other like how it is, and we don't get hurt by it. Where I feel like in a lot of my other relationships with people who don't have a primary or secondary R, they can get really hurt by the things I say because I just say them how I think them immediately.
You're hitting on two super predictable aspects of the R temperament, and I'll start with the last one, which is one of the greatest benefits of being in a relationship with an R is that you almost always know where they stand. Almost R's are the most external processors of any of the temperament types, and almost everything that comes into the R brain comes out of the R mouth, and so you don't have to wonder where you stand. The research shows that trust is a super important variable in a relationship, and one of the variables that has been shown to produce trust is openness or vulnerability. How much of, which is defined as how much of what goes on inside of me do you have access to? And with an R, that's a really high number normally. You almost always know a good deal. In fact, I'm married to an R, and I don't know how many times my wife has said something to me and said, I swore that I wasn't going to tell you that. I swore I wasn't going to say that. But it's really, really difficult for an R to not express that. And so then you're not guessing. And if you're with somebody that knows how to interpret that, because a lot of times people will feel kind of run over by R's because R's will say things that other people won't say. But having somebody that can know how to interpret that and then meet your intensity is a really big bonus.
So with that aspect you shared about like your wife like having a hard time keeping stuff, like does that work with surprises too? Because we cannot have a surprise within our relationship. We try to. I've had countless times where I try to surprise her with something, whether it's like a little gift or like something that's going to happen. And every single time I end up telling her before it happens. I don't know why, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. That fits with how the R brain works. I don't know. It's not something I've looked at. I don't know if that's kind of a universal R trait, but it's the same kind of thing that we're talking about with if something's on your radar screen, your brain's going to want to address it and get it done as fast as you can. And so I would think that would be kind of that process of R's aren't good at putting things on the shelf.
Yeah, it's interesting because Sam hates surprises, but I love them. So I think that when I try to give Sam a surprise, it doesn't work because he doesn't like them. And then I'm like, well, I just want to tell him the surprise. But then when he wants to surprise me, I just like figuring out what it is. Yeah. And so he like tells me about it, and then I'm like, oh, well, I have to know what it is now. Like, I love being surprised, but
you want the surprise to happen now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not patient enough to wait for it.
Well, I think that's the reason why I hate surprises, because it's like, well, like for example, like Christmas or a birthday, something's coming. You're gonna get some kind of gift, so it's like, all right, well, I know there is a surprise, but I don't know what it is, and I don't really want to figure it out. So just let me know what it is. Just give it to me now.
Yeah, I ended up giving him his birthday present like a week early because he just wanted it then.
Well, she gave in. So.
Interesting. The other thing that you guys mentioned that is a super powerful or super predictable R trait is the whole slowness issue. It is really challenging for most R's, the pace at which other people go. And can we just move, and can we just go, and does everything have to take so long? And that can be a conversation or a task or whatever. Ours frequently feel frustrated with how long things take. And in fact, my wife called me, my son, 15-year-old, who has quite a bit of R in him, was wanting to not do a math assignment. He said, it's going to take me forever to do. And he wanted to go do something with his friends. And he's like, it's going to take me forever to do. And ours frequently think that things take longer than they do. My wife will so frequently be like, man, that took like 30 minutes to do, and it's been like 10. But things feel really long to the R brain. What are some of the challenges that you've seen that show up in terms of you both being R's?
I think the fact that I expect him to think the exact same way that I do and deal with things the exact same way that I do. So when we approach something and he either doesn't think the same way as me or approaches it in a different way, that's really hard for me because I already have this expectation that we have the same temperament, so we're going to look at life the same way.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Well, I had a question. So is being part of an R being stubborn as well?
Yes. And you're an RE.
Yes, that's so double stubborn.
Double stubborn. Yes, R's, and it's interesting. The way an R is stubborn is different than the way that an E is stubborn. But both R's and E's are pretty high on control, which is kind of a similar variable to stubbornness, or leads to stubbornness. An R doesn't like things getting in the way of them getting stuff done. And so they don't want things to be overcomplicated. They don't want there to be a lot of hassle. And so they can be just like, let's just do this. And it's difficult for an R to change the channel. The benefit of the R is like, I'm focused on this. I've got this laser focus, and I'm gonna blow it out of the way. I'm gonna get it done. And so it can be really frustrating to have somebody try to get you off of that, and you can be stubbornly tenacious in your pursuit of that. Where an E is high on control and stubbornness because of their tenacity. So E's have this tremendous ability. They think through things thoroughly. They settle on, this is the right way to do it. And if I just do it myself, then it will be done right. And for an R, it's like, if I do it myself, I can get it done and out of the way. So both can be high on control. And E's have this tremendous amount of stubbornness of like, no, this is the right way. And you're wrong.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, a couple challenges that I always think of, like the specific challenge that comes to mind. Well, it's more of a challenge for me, maybe. I guess it can be both ways, but specifically, like, I mean, we're both engaged right now, and so it's like we're
to each other.
We're both engaged.
To the same person.
We're engaged right now, and one of the biggest things is obviously wedding planning, and there's tons of voices going on. Everyone's got something else they want to do with it, and so
lots of opinions.
Yes, exactly. But we're both R's. We want to get it done. We want to get it move fast. But I think me as it being an E, like, well, we're both really stubborn when it comes to stuff. Like, we're like, whatever's going to be fastest, that's what we want to do, most efficient. But me as an E is like, okay, well, I've thought about it. This is how we should do it because of A, B, and C. And then she'll originally fight, but because we both get over it really quick, and because she's willing to shift gears a lot easier than me as an E, she's just like, okay, if that's faster, let's do that. But the hard part is, now that I've listed it out, she hears another opinion from someone else, say, oh, this will make A, B, and C faster.
Even faster.
Let's do that. But then I'm like, wait a second, I figured this out. Why are we changing it? This ruins all the things that I just planned out.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the probably the biggest challenge, is the difference between my ability to switch gears and Sam's inability to switch gears. And it's caused a little bit of conflict in our relationship, because someone will be like, hey, let's go do this, and we had originally planned to do something else, and then I'm like, oh, great, okay, we're going. And then all of a sudden Sam's like, what? I was not planning on that. And then there's like this huge energy shift. So
yeah, and that's actually a good point, because your secondary is a
C.
Yeah, so an RC, and C's are more fluid than E's are, and so that rub is an interesting one to notice there. I also didn't want to lose what you said before. I didn't know if you were going to comment on it. What did you say before about the challenge? One of the challenges that you...
Oh, that I expect him to think the same way as me, because we're both R's.
In your mind, why does you both being R's lead to an expectation of thinking the same?
I think because a lot of times we like do things the same way, and so we both want to get things done. We both want to be effective and efficient, but then when we have like a difference of opinion, it's a little shocking to me because I think like I have this assumption that we're like our mind works the same way.
We're all the same.
So why would he have a different opinion?
Yeah. And I think that might be a little bit more of your C-ness coming into the equation, because C's really like comfort, right? They like feeling settled with things, and C's frequently kind of have this romantic view of relationships of like being in tune with each other. And C's a lot of times will romanticize the idea of mind reading. And if you really knew me and you were really plugged in with me, then you would know, and you would know that I like this, or that I would want this, or those kinds of things. And so that aspect is probably more your C, secondary C coming in, than your primary R. Mention another variable that I think is on the kind of the plus side of things, which is R's get over things faster than anybody else. Yeah. R's are the only temperament that live in the future, and R's are intense. Their intensity is really good at blowing through obstacles. And so it's kind of interesting that R's a lot of time can have a pretty intense fight and then be fine really quickly. And they're not just pretending to be fine. Their brains really have moved on. And a lot of times when R's are in relationships with other temperament types, especially, well, really whether they're C's, O's, or E's, a lot of times all of those people get over things slower than R's do. And they can feel like, man, you were just really mean, and now you're fine, and you're ready to move on. And so a lot of times with two R's, there will be more explosivity, more kind of intense fighting, and much quicker recovery from that fighting.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I think I get over things faster than you do. And so I think when I'm over it, he's over it.
Or should be.
Yeah, literally. And it can be frustrating for me sometimes when he's not over it at the same pace that I am, because once again, he's an R, so I'm like, well, obviously he's going to get over it at the same time as me, and now we can move on and be happy again.
How much onus do you have in you?
Like 20%, I think.
And how much C-ness?
It's like 30.
Because you're a lot of the stuff that you're talking about has kind of an O flair.
Wow, interesting.
And I don't know what the assessment is. No assessment is perfect. That percentage might be off, but some of what you're talking about in terms of getting over things quickly and shifting gears, O's shift gears, especially if somebody else is like presenting an option and stuff. Those are pretty predictable O traits there, which is I see 2 E's marrying more than 2 C's, 2 O's.
So surprising to me.
Well, but if you think about it, the E dream is like finding somebody else that wants to do things the exact same way that you do.
Yeah, but that's impossible to find someone who does the exact same thing as you do.
It is pretty hard, but a lot of times E's will really get into this mode of like, it's just you and I, and nobody else, needs to be part of the equation, and we can spend all of our time together. And as long as we share, we want to do the same things, because what drives the E brain is research. E's love figuring out the best way to do something. And so if you can find another partner who wants to like E out on the same things, then they can. But if they're not, then it's just constant power struggle, because you got 2 people that are both trying to impose their own agendas on things. And it can really drive them apart. Engagement is one of the most stressful moments in a relationship. There's a lot to manage. And you mentioned some of those challenges of everybody having an opinion and those kinds of things. What are you noticing from a temperament perspective, if at all, in terms of interfacing with the other people who have opinions about, which is parents, right? I mean, your parents, maybe some grandparents or whatever, having opinions about how you ought to be doing things. Do you see any temperament patterns there as they interface with your R-nesses?
I feel like dealing with wedding planning, I've been more of a C rather than an R, because I don't want to deal with the conflict of like having everyone kind of put their 2 cents in on what they want us to do. So a lot of the times I'm really motivated by just getting it done so that I don't have to deal with the uncomfortability of the fight with people.
And so you feel like you've been more willing to kind of adapt.
Yeah.
Because but did you hear how she said that? Because it's the quickest and easiest way to get it done, right?
Sounds like a C thing, but maybe it's an R.
That's an R thing. And it's your, I mean, the way you said it, that's your R brain thinking this is the most efficient way to get these things done.
Yeah, I guess it is.
For me, I think the hardest part is like my Rness wants to get it done. Well, my Eness is like, well, of course we got to do this all the right way. So let's think it out. Let's do this, A, B, and C, whatever. But then it's like, hey, I've got this idea figured out. I'll talk with Claire about it and we'll get an idea fleshed out. So now we've got this whole plan. And it's like, hey, we'll bring it to the higher ups. What do you think?
Yeah.
And then
they're going to have a different opinion.
Right. Obviously, people are going to have a different opinion. That's okay. But just as I feel like I figured all these things out and the reasons things get shut down are for things I'm like, oh, I don't think that's as nearly as important as these other things I thought about. So then at the end of the day, well, I know that like, well, I don't have a lot of control. And so instead of an E, like fighting to make sure it's the right way, my R is like, well, let's just get it done. Let's just move on. I'd let my R overpower my E because I just want to get it done over with. And
that's more important than doing it the way that you had figured it out.
Exactly.
Yeah, going along with that, I feel like I have put it upon myself to do everything because I know that I'm going to be way more efficient than anyone else who could do it. And I have like put too much on my plate and it's kind of been stressing me out. And then I feel like sometimes Sam doesn't want to do it because he knows it's going to take a long time.
Kind of the engagement thing itself, right?
Uh-huh. And so he sometimes is like, well, I don't really want to do this right now. Whereas I'm like, well, we need to get it done now. And I need to check all of the boxes off my list, you know?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, that's one of the biggest things. It's just like, hey, let's do this thing. I'm like, well, before we move into this, we have these other things that need to get done before this gets done. So we can't move forward yet because we have to stay back here. And then my brain's always like, well, this thing, now that there's to get to A, we have to do, 1, 2, and 3 to get to A. It's just like, all right, well, we can't do this yet. It's a big thing. If we're going to do it, we're going to have to spend a lot of time and really get into the depths of it. But often that's not how it is. And then I'm like, well, we're not doing this right. Let's slow down.
Can you see that interplay between your R and E? I mean, that is such an RE internal dynamic that you're talking about there. Because internal family systems theory is all about the fact that we have these internal parts of us with different agendas, and temperament is so much a part of that. So just like you have a relationship with another temperament out externally, you also have that same kind of dynamic going on internally. And R has tremendous initial inertia. Mm-hmm. Like the gas pedal is like 0 to 60 really fast. Mm-hmm. But if an R can't create movement on something quickly, the R brain has a really hard time spinning its wheels. The R brain is revving at like 7,000 RPMs. And you can't rev on something for 7,000 RPMs for very long without something giving, right? And so if an R can't create movement on something, the R brain will want to jump onto something that it can create movement on. And that's kind of the dynamic that I think you were talking about there. Like, your objective is to create movement. If going down this road, hassle and resistance are real enemies to Rness, not so much enemies to Eness. E's have this ability to live in hassle and resistance a lot. R's are really good at blowing through initial resistance, but if it stays complicated and hassly, the R brain has a really hard time sitting in there. It sounds like that's kind of what your brain's wanting to jump onto, is like, okay, I do not want to sit in all of this mess. And so let's just, what's the quickest route out of here? And let's get it done. Because you also have a timeline, right? You can't, because sometimes an R, kind of like you wanted to do with the engagement, the R will resist getting things on the radar that they know they're not going to be able to do something about, and they don't want that frustration. But when you've got these dates and these deadlines, then you've got to figure out the best way or the fastest way to get it done. One of the cool things about the human brain is just labeling or naming what's going on activates a different part of the brain. And so if you say, this is what's going on, then your ability to manage it is much, much stronger. And so I think that's one of the biggest benefits of understanding temperament, is when you understand that these are are unchangeable parts of how she is and how he is, and you get each other much more than if you weren't the same primary temperaments. But understanding that will enable you to be able to manage those things that a lot of couples really struggle with, especially during that first year of marriage. And I think a lot of your challenges will probably come in managing your secondary types effectively, and you understanding some of the E challenges and choosing when to plug into your R-ness and when to plug into your E-ness and those kinds of things, and then you knowing how to interface with that will be important things for you guys to keep in mind. Great job, great conversation, and best of luck. Yeah, and for those of you watching, thanks for watching. Appreciate you joining us today. If you haven't taken the C.O.R.E assessment, I recommend that you do so, because if you don't understand how these dynamics are playing out in your relationships with your partner, with your spouse, with your children, you're missing out on a golden key that unlocks so many doors to a successful relationship.